Hello, and welcome to the In the Word podcast. This is the podcast that will help you to understand God's Word, build a stronger relationship with God, and develop habits that will help you love God and others better. And now, here's your host, Trevor Poe.
Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome back to the podcast. Just want to say thank you guys for tuning in once again. And before we get into the story, I want to share with you guys, I want to remind you, those of you that may be watching this on YouTube, that you can also listen in wherever podcasts can be found: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. You can also listen on those platforms as well. If you don't have the opportunity to sit and check out the YouTube video, you can go to some of those platforms, Google Podcasts, and check out the podcast as well. And with saying that, I just want to say thank you guys for all of the downloads, you guys tuning in, commenting, encouraging, praying, whatever it is that you've been doing. I just want to say thank you, and I truly do appreciate you. Listen, this week on the podcast, I want to share a very special story. Some of you probably have already heard about this story. It was national news. And I just wanted to share it because it was just so many different things that happened within the story and just how everything unfolded. I just wanted to just talk about this week. And you may have saw the title, and you may have saw it said the Kason Thomas story, but in actuality, there's a reason why I named it that, but in actuality, it's really the Kason and Kiyair Thomas story, about two little twin brothers, 5 months old. But the reason why I named it the Kason Thomas story is because, as you will see as we talk about this, and how everything unfolded, there's a reason why I kind of highlighted him in the title. But originally, when I heard about the story, I originally heard it from my mom. I was talking to her on the phone, and I believe it was on Monday night, the night that this happened, on Monday, December 19th. And I was talking to my mom, and she was like, "Oh yeah, did you hear about the two little babies that were kidnapped?" And I was like, "Nah, I didn't really hear about it." So she explained a little bit to me about it. And I was like, "Yeah, we definitely got to keep the mom up in prayer." And what happened was, the mother of the twins, Kason and Kiyair, she was door dashing, and I guess she ran into a restaurant to pick up some food to deliver to a customer. And while she was in there, a young lady jumped in the car and took off with the car. Now, mind you, my mom's is just telling me little bits and pieces about it, but still haven't heard the story, still haven't saw it for myself. So we talked, we hung up, just said a little prayer. And I believe the next day, which was on Tuesday, is when I saw the story for myself. And it was just so heartbreaking to just hear everything that had transpired, and just to see the grandmother, the mother, and everybody crying and pleading. But to go back to the beginning of the story, Monday, December 19th, their mom, she goes inside of, I believe it was a pizza restaurant, to pick up some food. A young lady named Nala Jackson jumps in the car and takes off with the two little baby boys, the two 5-month-old brothers. Now think about this. And I know, because I saw this online, um, you know, people were very sensitive, thank God, to the mom just because of what she was going through. But I know she definitely shouldn't have left them in the car, obviously, by themselves. Obviously, she was out there trying to make ends meet, trying to do what she got to do to make money. Who knows what her situation is or was. But obviously wasn't a good idea. I'm sure when she went in that restaurant, and I'm sure it wasn't the first time, she didn't think anybody would just jump in the car and take off with them. But, thankfully you got some people that got on her, and, definitely, you don't want to leave kids that young, or, up until whatever age. We see so many deaths when it comes to people leaving their children in the car when it's too hot. Some people forgetting that their children is in the car. So I'm sure she beat up herself a lot, when this young lady jumped in the car and took off. I'm sure she had good intentions to try to provide and take care of them, but you know unfortunately this is what came of it. Even though she wasn't trying to do anything negative, here we are, or here she is, coming out of a restaurant looking for a car, seeing that it's not there, and not knowing what has happened to her 2 5-month-old twin baby sons. So a young lady named Nala Jackson jumps in the car, takes off, and the police, they know who it is immediately. I guess this young lady is known in the area. They say that she's supposed to be homeless. I guess she's had some run-ins with the authorities in that area. And also, I believe they had some surveillance on her in different places where she had went. So they knew that it was her. So, immediately, they're looking for her. They're looking for the babies. Now, this is on Monday night. So, and this is when I originally heard about it, but it wasn't until Tuesday when they found baby Kiyair. So basically, she takes baby Kiyair, one of the twin brothers, and she drops him off at the Dayton International Airport on Tuesday. So this is when I kind of start hearing about the story. I meant, more about the story, because my mom had told me a little bit about it, but now I'm seeing the family on TV. They're crying like, please, bring baby Kason back. We love him, and think about this. This has to be mentally, spiritually draining, frustrating. I mean, because for her to only drop one brother off and not the other, just think about, obviously you're praising God because baby Kiyair has been found, he's safe, but now where is his brother? Where's little Kason? So, that that just had to just make it even more intense, because all of these things are running through your mind. You're like, why drop off one and not drop off the other? And when you watched it on TV and you saw them pleading and crying for her to bring back baby Kason also, man, it was heartbreaking. And, I just, immediately went into prayer, just to touch and agree again with the prayers that had gone up for him, because obviously, it was a nationwide story. Many, millions of people saw it. I'm pretty sure millions of people started praying, and I just wanted to just tap in and just touch and agree with the prayers of the righteous, the prayers that was going up for Kason to be returned. But just think about how devastating and how scary this had to be. So 2 days passed, and on Thursday, 170 miles away in Indianapolis, they finally find Nala Jackson. Now, from the little bit that I've, checked into the story, I guess there was 2 young ladies that somehow notified the police where she was. So they were able to obtain her, able to get her without incident, bring her into custody. But here's the kicker, and here's the unfortunate thing. And think about this. This is 170 miles away from where he was originally kidnapped, which was in Columbus, Ohio. The brother was found on Tuesday in Dayton, Ohio, at the Dayton International Airport. And now here they find Nala Jackson 170 miles away in Indianapolis. But guess what? There was no Kason with her. So now there's another kick in the teeth. Think about it. Baby Kiyair is found on Tuesday. Praise God, we're excited. We got Kiyair, but where's Kason? But now 2 days later, we find Nala, the one we've been looking for, the one that has, baby Kason, and could potentially be this could be the answer to our prayers, because we know that he is with her, but yet when they find her, Kason is not with her. So once again, there's a panic, there's a heartbreak. What did she do to Kason? Where is he? Is he alive? Is he well? All of the different things that run through not only the mind of the parents, because his father, had been at all of the gatherings, the prayer gatherings, his mom, his grandma, who had been very outspoken, and they interviewed her a lot during this process. If you guys have not heard the story, after this podcast is over, please go and check out some of the footage. But definitely very heartbreaking, to just see this process play out. So here we are, Thursday, Nala, but no Kason. And if you live in the United States, you know that this past Friday and Saturday, there was a huge just winter storm across the whole United States. Like, places that don't normally have low temperatures had low temperatures. We saw what happened in Buffalo. And out there in New York, a bunch of people died. So it got really, really bad on Friday and Saturday. So on this Thursday, when they found her with no Kason, it's like, listen, we have to find this baby, because this storm is coming. It's about to get really bad out here. And from what I was able to gather, and I don't know how this came about, because I tried to look deeper into the story, but evidently the two young ladies that knew where Nala was, that pointed the police in her direction, I believe are the same young ladies that were able to find where Kason Thomas was. And guess where he was, guys? He was in the same car, his mother's car, that he was kidnapped in, sitting in a Papa John's parking lot. Let me say that again. Sitting inside a cold car, because even though the storm hasn't hit yet, Friday and Saturday isn't here yet, but the temperatures was still very cold, especially out in Indianapolis. But here he is sitting in a Papa John's parking lot in the car, and these two young ladies call the police, and the two responding officers, which once you go look at footage and look up the story, you will see them talk a lot. Sergeant Sean Anderson and Sergeant Richard L., they were the first responders. And something that was said by some of the reporters that talked to the the Papa John's employees, one employee said that they believe that car, and oh man, this story is just, it's just amazing, and it's just crazy, all in one. But the Papa John's worker told a reporter that they believe, or he believed, that car was out there since Tuesday. So it sounds like she must have dropped baby Kiyair off out in Dayton, Ohio at the international airport, traveled all the way to Indianapolis, and kind of dumped the car on that same day. But he says he believed, just being an employee and seeing that car out there, that car had at least been there 2 days. And I know what some of you guys are thinking, which what everybody probably would be thinking, well, why didn't they check the car, or why didn't they, call the police and say something about a car sitting in the lot? Well, first of all, we know that in parking lots like that, Papa John's, Walmart, all of these different parking lots, it's not unusual to see a car parked there, and especially if you have employees or a manager that they don't really care who parked there or whatever have you. You might have a manager or some employees that see a car parked in front of the business for a couple of days, and are troubled by it, and call the police to get it out of there or get it towed. But a lot of times, people don't know who car that belongs to. They don't know if it broke down or what happened, so they just kind of leave it. And here's another kicker. The car was tinted out. It had tints to the point of where you couldn't see in the car. So they just didn't pay it any mind, and unfortunately, baby Kason was in the car, and they were saying that some of the employees said it was hard for them to sleep, after they found out that he had been in the car for those 2 days. But remember those 2 officers that I told you about, Sergeant Sean Anderson and Sergeant Richard L. They were the first responders on scene. They get there. The 2 women have baby Kason. When you go online and you look up this story, you will see Sergeant Anderson holding baby Kason inside the store. I don't know if that was the Papa John's or someplace close by. It probably was a Papa John's, holding baby Kason with a coat around him. And when I tell you, it's just heartwarming, beautiful, little handsome cutie pie, little Kason, him and his brother, 2 little handsome young men. And just to see him just staring into the camera or whoever had took the picture, it was just amazing. It was encouraging, tears to your eyes. Like, this whole story was amazing. But here's the thing. When you look at this picture, when you see this picture and you look at him, he does not look like a baby that had been gone for about 4 days now, but not only been gone for 4 days, but had been sitting in the back of a car for 2 days in the cold. God truly, truly, truly kept him. Amen. Like, God truly kept his angels camped about that car. I just vision the angels just standing around the car, just making sure nothing happened, making sure he stayed warm. I don't know if they were in the car, outside of the car, but God kept his angels camped around him. His presence was there. Last night, just going over the story again, I came into the bedroom and I was just so excited. My wife was like, man, you're real excited. It's good to see you excited like that. And I'm like, this story, man, it was just mind blowing, man. And to see everybody just really stop and pray for this baby and his brother when this happened, and pray for the mother and father and the grandmother, everybody just touching and agreeing, just crying out to the Lord, like, Lord, please, please bring them back home safe. Think about this, guys. Think about this. This couldn't have been nobody but God. He was kidnapped on Monday the 19th, Monday night. Brother found on Tuesday. He's missing another whole 2 days, sitting in the back of a car out in the cold. And watch when you guys see the picture of the officer, Sergeant Anderson, holding him. It looks like he just got picked up out of his crib, from a nap. And it goes to show you the grace of God, the keeping of God, how beautiful and awesome God is. And as I looked at that picture of him, it reminded me of Deuteronomy chapter 8, when the Lord was talking to the children of Israel. I believe it's verse 4. And he was telling them, like, listen, all these days that you've been out here, these 40 years in this wilderness, he says, listen, your raiment hasn't waxed old. He says, and neither did your foot swell. Like, God kept their clothes, nice and new, and from being all ripped up. And just imagine wearing the same thing for 40 years in the wilderness. Those clothes are going to be a mess. They're going to be no good. But God says, listen, I even kept your clothes, and I kept your feet from swelling, and I kept you guys safe until you kept tempting me the 10 times that you did. And that's when God dealt with them. But God is a keeper. And when I saw little baby Kason, this is what it reminded me of. It reminded me of how God keeps us and he watches over us. And I started looking at some of the testimony of Sergeant Anderson and Sergeant Richard L., because they also talked to them, being that they were the first responders on the scene. And, that picture went viral of Sergeant Anderson just holding little baby Kason. And oh man, I'm so excited. I mean, when he was holding him, I felt like I was holding him. I wish I could have held him. It was so beautiful. It was just beautiful. And God is beautiful, and God is awesome. Jesus truly is Lord. And I'm thankful for this outcome and what God did in this. But listen to what Sergeant Anderson told a reporter. He said that he had prayed to God. Now, this is after they found Nala Jackson. He said he had, he said he had prayed to God to find Kason because the storm was coming. And guess what? They found him. So everybody was praying. The police, anybody that heard the story, anybody that knew the word of prayer was crying out for this baby boy. And guess what? They found him. And guess what he said? He said, miracles do happen. And I love this officer. He sounds like he's definitely a believer in the Lord just by the way he was talking. Sergeant Richard L. He shared his heart about, how he has children and he couldn't imagine, not only his child, being missing for a day, but imagine being missing for 3 to 4 days. But shout out to these officers and the love that they showed baby Kason when they found him. But listen to this word that Sergeant Anderson said to baby Kason's family. He says he believes Kason is a special child. God has his hand on him and will continue to bless him for the rest of his life. And another thing he said is God has his hand on him and his angels were with him to protect him and bring a happy ending to this situation. And I totally 100% agree with that. Nobody could have kept him that way but God. Nobody could have protected him but the ministering spirits of God, the angels of God. And how do I know? Because I've been through it in my own life. Many of you have been through it in your own life where you've been in situations where nobody could have kept you but God. I've shared a little of my testimony here on the podcast, on the YouTube channel, on In the Word, on Eat Up Mondays. But for those of you that don't know some of my testimony, I lost my mind from for the years of 1999 and the year 2000, pretty much like 2 years smoking PCP. Tried it, smoked it a couple times, and all of a sudden my mind was gone. And those that know me personally, that was in the streets with me, they know the things that I did, the things that happened. I used to drive on the sidewalk in the car. I would walk in the middle of traffic. I was doing all types of crazy stuff. And God kept me. My mind was mush and God kept me. Guns drawn on me. Listen, I grew up in the city. I was living in the city at that time. The city that I was born and raised in, it was one of the worst cities in the United States. It had one of the worst projects in the United States. And guess what? Oh, and not even just one. It was at least 10 projects in the city that were terrible, but one of them was considered one of the worst in the United States. And God navigated me, kept me in this environment with a mind that was gone. Like I had friends. This is a true story. I had friends because I flipped the switch so quickly and I was never known for bugging and doing crazy stuff. That friends of mine that I was in the street with, that I was supposed to be close with, they talked about killing me, taking my life because I was so unpredictable because of the things that I was doing, because my mind was gone. I had a friend that I grew up with. Now, this is after I was saved. I saw him and we was talking. Now, I grew up with him way before the streets, way before the drugs and selling drugs and gangs and all that. Me and him, we were little kids playing together. But then, I eventually caught up with him and his brothers and them in the same place where we grew up now. Now we're adults selling drugs, hustling, drinking, getting high, all these different things. But later on, when I saw him, because he saw me go through that process because he was living around where I was, I see him, I'm saved, we kicking it. And he told me that back then when I was bugging, that I would tell him that Satan was our father. Now, this is something you have to understand. This is why this is so crazy. And this is how I know that the devil was trying to destroy me and that my mind truly was gone. Nowhere on God's green earth before that happened to me that you would ever hear me talk anything about the devil or give the devil any type of glory. But yet my mind was gone. This was my conversation. I'm driving up on sidewalks. I got stabbed, bullet grazed. I still got it on my shoulder. all types of crazy things was going on, but God kept his angels around me. You know why? Because he had a plan for my life. And I believe exactly what Sergeant Anderson said. That is the reason why he did this as well for baby Kason. We definitely need to pray for him and little baby Kiyair, because God definitely has his hand on their life, especially little baby Kason. I don't know what God has planned for him, but first of all, he's started him off with one of the greatest, one of awesome testimony. You know, he not even a year old, and he got a testimony that he can go on stages and tell later on when he gets old enough to understand what has happened in his life. But truly, God is still protecting, still watching over in such a wicked and wild world. I don't know what's going on with this young lady, Nyla Jackson, but she has a host of charges. I believe after she got arrested, she spit on some officers or something. They added some more charges to her. Obviously, something must be going on in her mind and stuff. Prayerfully, you know, God can heal her mind and she can get saved. Thank God she didn't hurt, you know, these babies and just took it to another level. So thank God for his grace on that end as well for her, right? Because with her mind state or whatever she's going through or dealing with, she could have just got wild and crazy, even though she did leave him for dead. You know what I mean? She did leave him, you know, not even thinking what could happen to him, because she could have just walked him right into the Papa John's, you know, just like she left his brother at the airport. So who knows what's going on in her mind. You know, prayerfully she finds the Lord saves her. But this was an amazing story, and I'm thankful for little baby Kason and baby Kiyair and their whole entire family, their mother and their father, that they're back home safe. I saw a video of their father crying and pleading for them to bring baby Kason back after they had found baby Kiyair. So heartbreaking. But now, you know, they're praising God and giving them the glory. We're able to have the baby boys back in time for the holiday season this past weekend. So God is truly good. And there was two ladies at a church that organized the donation drive for the family. So hopefully, this will help the young mother with, you know, with the babies, and, you know, maybe give her an opportunity to just kind of focus on them for now, instead of having to run out and, you know, work how she was working. And obviously she's not going to do the same thing, right? We know that she's not going to make that same mistake. You know, like I said, she probably wasn't even thinking about it. She probably was thinking about, listen, I need to, you know, pay these bills. You know, their father, he probably was working, doing whatever he had to do. You know, we don't know their situations, but thankfully, you know, not only did God bring back their sons, but also touch some people's heart to help be a blessing to them for this holiday season. And prayerfully, this will help them through this early transition of, you know, having these beautiful baby twin boys. But listen, I just wanted to share that story with you guys. For one, because it's a beautiful and awesome story and testimony. But for two, just to remind you that prayer does work. When people really, you know, say, you know, forget everything and we're just going to cry out to the Lord, prayer does work. God still is listening. And prayerfully, that is an encouragement to somebody out there. Prayerfully, that is an encouragement to you. Those of you that are listening to the sound of my voice, don't give up. Pray, cry out to God, because he is listening, especially if you're saved. The Bible says the prayers of the righteous availeth much. Why? Because we belong to the Lord. But yeah, guys, when you get a chance, go and check out the story. You know, go on Google. All you got to do is type, you know, twins kidnap, baby boy twins kidnap, whatever. Everything is going to pop up, I'm sure. And just look at some of the testimonies and just the whole story, the way it unfolded. Just amazing. But know that I love you guys. And until the next time we hop on the podcast together, shalom.